Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and that was Rick Latham solo number 7 from Advanced Funk Studies. So when I talked to Rick a couple weeks ago, he told me that he thought this was the most difficult solo. And I would tend to agree with him as far as so many types of linear drumming that are involved in this. You're kind of all over the place, you know, it's just hi-hat, bass drum, snare drum, and nothing's really lining up. So the most difficult part of this solo is to play it evenly, which is very difficult. So I would suggest that you all record yourself playing this audio and video if possible, and just really scrutinize it for evenness, because you'll find that some things that you thought were even are not necessarily even. Now this has some tricky triplet stickings. So the sticking Rick has written in there is right, right, left. So, and there's a little accent on the first note. So the way I execute that is just to drop my hands. And the same thing with the hi-hat when you see that. And that happens pretty much all over the place. If you look at line 4, second bar, you see it there. All right, so that's important. Now, the snare drum I've been using for the last couple of these videos, I haven't really talked about it, but I put it in the description, is Ludwig Supraphonic, an old one. So you see there. Now this is this one I believe is aluminum. I do have a chrome over brass version of this from 1961. This one's probably in the late 60s. And I really love the sound of this drum. It's not too high pitched like a piccolo, like that Garibaldi drum you heard me use in a couple of the videos. It's really kind of fat sounding, you know. And it's got a great rim shot sound. But I use that extremely sparingly, as you probably heard there. Maybe 1 or 2 rim shots here and there, just for effect. So like big moments, the first bar of line 3 where you have that break. That's a great spot for a rim shot. Please don't overdo your rim shots. It becomes really tedious sounding. The snare drum should have lots of different variations in sound. So your general playing area is going to be pretty much for this stuff right off center. So if I play right in the center, it sounds like this. Extremely similar, but just a hair drier. So I like to kind of aim for right off center so I get a little more ring. Now this drum does tend to ring quite a bit if I take this muffling off. I am kind of drying it up so it doesn't ring into everything else. And this kind of solo should sound pretty tight and clean. So again, whatever snare drum you use, I've gotten a lot of questions on this particular thing. You know, which snare drum should I use? That's up to you. I'm using several different drums when I'm doing this. Now let's talk a little about the harder parts of the solo. I'm going to put this muffler back on actually for now. So I think the most difficult part of this solo is one bar in particular, is the last bar of line 6, where you have for some reason that gives a lot of my students trouble, that bar. So just go over that a lot. And then line 7 is also difficult. Kind of an Ed Greene thing, you know. Ed Greene was a great kind of funk R&B drummer, pop drummer. Played with like the Jackson 5 and groups like that back in the 70s. And he did a lot of that really cool hi-hat stuff where it was lot of opens, which I loved, you know, hearing him play that. So that kind of thing is in line 7, if you see, you know, the hi-hat doing that. So another tricky part is the last line of the first page. Now, that's tricky because that hi-hat open needs to just last until that mid-tom hits. So just keep your heel down on your hi-hat for that. Up to tempo. Okay? But overall, once you learn this solo in parts, like I've been kind of describing how to do the harder solos in this book, like number 4, number 7, you'll hear number 8 soon. I'll post that. That's a really hard one. That's a shuffle one. You need to learn these solos in pieces. They're made up of different components from the book. So this particular solo is kind of in the style of, you know, Gerry Brown, like the last one a little bit. David Garibaldi is definitely in there, of course. We already talked about Ed Greene. So there's some Steve Gadd in here. So this is kind of a collection of different styles. But difficult groove-wise, and you need to go really slow. So I would just start the solo really, really slow. Let's say 80 on 16ths. So almost a slow motion kind of thing. That's really, really good for your control and learning. Like I said earlier, everything's all over the place. Hi-hat, snare drum, bass drum, toms, 2 toms in this, mid-tom and low tom. So you've got to learn the solo and memorize it if possible. Like I said, I'm pretty much at a RAM up here, so I read everything. So that's solo 7, and I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, this is one of the harder ones in the book. And the next thing I'll post will be solo 8, and that's a shuffle funk solo. I think you'll really enjoy that. Thanks.